But it's exciting because we get to get this live stream up and running and get this interview up and running now. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Michael Julian, the CEO of National Business Investigations and MPS Security and Protection. Michael is active in several private and government and national and international security and investigation associations, including the California Association of Licensed Investigators, ASIS International, National Council of Investigation and Security Services, and the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals, in addition to a ton of others with a ton of other accolades. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right in. What is your story?
Well, my story, I guess, would be that I was born into the industry that I'm still in, currently in. My father started our company in 1967, so I was literally born into it and have been exposed to it my entire life. I worked for him for many years. He passed away in 1997, and I was thrust into entrepreneurship. I was an employee before, and then suddenly he was gone, and he had taught me how to be good at my trade, but not a businessman. So I have spent the last 22 years learning how to be a businessman. So I have my quest has been to master entrepreneurship, and I'm sure I will never master it, but it's what I've been working towards since I took over the company.
You mentioned how you were taught or you learned how to master your craft, master your trade. What exactly is that?
So we are a international, private investigation and security and protection firm. The parent company is National Business Investigations, Inc., and we do corporate investigations, due diligence, civil litigation support, insurance fraud, defense. We find people, we find money, we find facts. And yes, we have done an occasional cheating husband or wife, and that's just something that everyone associates my industry with. But that is a tiny portion of what we've done for the last 52 years now. And then there's the security side of things, and that's spread out to some degree. We do uniform security for anything you ever see, any kind of security guard in a uniform. But a big portion of our security and protective services side is executive protection. So we protect corporate executives, high net worth individuals, celebrities, anybody who could be at risk, anybody who's got high exposure or has something that other people want. We've got tons of different clients, anywhere from Coca-Cola to Northrop Grumman. Anyone who needs security or protection, and in this day and age, as you know from watching the news, that's most people. What I spend most of my time with now is I created an active shooter survival course called ALIVE, and it's ALIVE, Assess, Leave, Impede, Violence, and Expose. So I go all over the country now because I've got a very good executive staff that runs the day-to-day operations. So it gives me the freedom to travel the country and teach to my client organizations, anywhere from hospitals, churches, utilities agencies, any companies with multiple employees. I teach my live program to. And now we're rolling out an online education platform. And I'm also doing a train the trainer where I'm having to teach other people to teach this. It's a trademarked program, but I can't do it all myself. I traveled most of the year last year teaching, and I just can't do it all myself. So I'm teaching several other people and certifying them so that they can teach the course now.
What's the essence of the course that people need to know?
The essence is literally surviving an active shooter or active assailant, which is the industry term, but most people associate this sort of event or phenomenon with shooters using guns, though it's not always guns. But it's the 5 fundamentals of surviving that type of event. Most of those events last, well, the majority of them last less than 5 minutes, but 10 minutes is usually a long one. New Zealand attack, which was pretty recent, you can kind of call those 2 different events because it was at 2 different mosques, and each of those lasted less than 10 minutes. Virginia Tech was 10 minutes. The Las Vegas Route 91 Music Festival massacre was 10 minutes. So I teach people how to survive for 10 minutes, because if you make it to that point, chances are it's going to end before then.
What are some of the fundamentals of how to actually survive? I mean, I know you have a whole course on it, and it probably takes a lot longer to really expand on all this, but what are some of the core principles there?
The core principles are the 5 steps, which is assess, leave, impede, violence, and expose. Assess basically means stop what you're doing when you hear shots or you see somebody that looks like they're going to attack. You stop for a split second, take a deep breath to get some oxygen to your brain, so that you can think and handle the adrenaline that is about to get burst into your blood system, and say, what is happening and what can I do to counter this so I can go home to my loved ones. The leave portion, similar to, I'm sure you've heard Run, Hide, Fight. That was the first kind of program that was created many, many years ago after the Columbine shooting. And leave is very simply, if you can get out of there, do so. You want to remove yourself from that area or time and space of danger and get out of there if you can. If you cannot, you need to impede the killer, which means create time and space. So if you can get into a room, lock the door, block the door, turn the lights off. If the killer doesn't think you're there, he may pass on by. The thing with these people is their only objective is to kill as many people possible in as short amount of time as possible. So they're not going to waste time trying to get into a barricaded room when there's people running down the hall that they can go get to quickly. So you're trying to create time and space to impede their ability to get to you and do you harm. The violence portion, if you can't leave and you can't impede, then you are going to have to create a situation and promote violence upon this person. That would be the fight of the Run, Hide, Fight. And I teach, basically you've got to attack this person with the intent to kill them. Now, I'm not promoting killing anyone, but I'm saying understanding the mindset of this person, which is they're going to kill you. There's no negotiating. There's no hostages. There's no give me money or I'll hurt you. I'm here to kill you. So you have got to attack me with every intent, 100% commitment to take me out. So a big part of my program is mindset. I say typically that you could have the most powerful legs and be the fastest runner and the most athletic person in the world, but if you don't have a burning desire to cross the finish line first, you're not going to get that goal. You have got to be set in your mind, I'm going to survive today. And in fact, I'm real angry that this person wants to take me from my loved ones. So you're going to become enraged, not be a victim, not have a victim mentality, not be afraid. Though fear is a good sensation. It's a necessary stimulus. It tells your body and mind to get into a place where it needs to be with all of your might and all of your emotional and mental fortitude to survive a situation like that. So I teach mindset quite a bit, and it comes into play in the violence portion. And then the E on Alive is you need to, when you think it's over, you need to expose your position very carefully. For two reasons. One, it may not be over. There might be two shooters just because one might be down, or you don't hear them anymore. There may be another one, so you don't just pop out. And another one is when you do expose your situation and you want to leave the area, you may come running around the corner with your cell phone in your hand, and law enforcement, SWAT, or whoever is now entering the building, and they don't know you're a good guy, and they may mistake you for a bad guy. So you have to be very careful in the way that you expose your position in order to get out of there. And I tell people, if you're in a safe room or somewhere where the bad guy cannot get to you, just stay there until law enforcement starts to clear the building, and then let them know of your presence, and they will instruct you how to get out safely.
Wow. That is powerful. How long did it take you to develop this methodology?
You know, first of all, this came from really, I was angry because I was watching on the news all of these active killer situations, and good people were being they were victimized, they were being slaughtered, and really it was because they didn't know what to do. So I don't know why, but I decided that if there's something that I could do to help educate these people, I was going to do it. I was angry because I knew that the reason this was happening is because people didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they could just adjust their mindset and their behavior just a little bit, they had a dramatically higher possibility of survival. So I guess to answer your question, I started thinking about it years ago, and I became, every time I saw one of these events, I became more disturbed and upset and angry. And I thought, you know what, there's got to be something that can be done. These people have to know, they have to have some kind of idea of how to proceed and how to act and how to think, other than just, I'm going to die today and, you know, crawl into a corner and ball up. And you see that if you've seen the video of the New Zealand massacre, when people heard gunshots, there was two rooms where, or a large room where the majority of the parishioners were, the prayers were, and they went over, most of them split into two groups, one in each corner, and they just cowered in a corner. And that's got nothing to do with male or female, Christian, Muslim, black, white, it doesn't matter. The human psyche, unless they know better, they go into not even fight or flight. A lot of people go into paralysis. And you see in the video, people literally just in a group in the corner. And when the assailant came in, he just started shooting into a huge ball of people. He couldn't miss if he wanted to. And so anyway, when I finally decided, I became frustrated, and I was thinking, you know, first of all, why do these people do what they do? Why do they, I thought they've got to be mentally ill. No rational thinking person would ever go into a crowded area and start taking lives like that. There's no way. And then, of course, I found out after a long study by the Secret Service and the FBI that, in fact, 25% or less were found to have any kind of mental illness whatsoever. And a very small percentage, I think 6 or 7%, actually had had psychosis or paranoid schizophrenia or something like that, where they were really, truly mentally ill. The rest had personality disorders or emotional disorders or something. So anyway, when I discovered that, when I started doing the research on my own, just because I was curious, I wanted to know why. And I found that these people were not necessarily, psychotic. I thought, well, there's got to be a way to understand what they're thinking and then teach people how to counter it. I liken it to team sports. Let's say you're on a football team. What's the best way to defeat your opponent? When you go up to the line, you leave the huddle, you go up to the line, and they're about to hike the ball. If you know the other players or the other team's, book, their playbook, you know what they're going to do because you know why what they're thinking and why they're going to do it. Chances are they're going to have a hard time beating you. So I thought, well, if I figure out kind of what's going on in these people's minds, and I did that by putting myself in the mindset of the shooter, which was a little disturbing, but it was kind of easy to figure out, what, based on what they believe and what their motive and their objective is, what they would do next. So I started creating the program. I started attending different trainings. I became certified. I went to a 2-day trainer class by one of probably the largest commercial active shooter survival programs in the country. And I became a trainer for them. But as I'm going through this training and I'm learning their plan and their program, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I don't think I would do that. Or I would do it differently, and I would rather do this or that. And honestly, that's when I started thinking, wait a minute, I think I could make a better one. I think I could come up with a better program that would save more lives. And literally, while I was in the class, I started sketching out ideas as to what I would do, how I would do it, and what I would call it. And that's how Alive was born.
It seems like for a mission of this caliber, of this size, you really need to be focused in on it and giving it almost all of, if not all of your attention. How did you manage, and I know you said you had an amazing, you have an amazing executive team to help you, but how did you manage the transition from running your business into really championing this cause? Like, how did you make that transition?
Well, two things. One, when the course was, once it was done and I started teaching it, the demand was extraordinary. And I've never done any real fancy marketing. I post stuff on Facebook. I'm involved in these associations, so people know who I am, and word just kind of got out. Now, I did in 2017 decide, wait a minute, I'm not reaching enough people. So I took my presentation. I basically wrote a book based on my presentation, and that was published in January 2018. And of course, that has significantly helped promote the program because that's been selling on Amazon and Kindle for a year now. I'm sorry, what was the question again? I get sidetracked sometimes. I get excited about this topic.
Yeah. So how did you make the transition from running your business and managing the day-to-day to
demand? Basically, calls were coming in, inquiries were coming in. I was getting engagements booked all over the country, and it just made it to where I had to either devote the majority, if not, well, the majority of my time to this program. Luckily, like I said, I've got a great executive team that, I've got department heads that run investigations, security, executive protection. And so I was able to simply say, and I sat down with them one day and I said, look, this is my passion. I've done investigations and security my whole life. Frankly, I don't really want to do it anymore. Or, I'm not as passionate about it as maybe I could be, because it's all I've ever done. It's all I know. And then this thing came along and I'm so passionate about it that I basically said, look, you guys are going to have to really just do things and run it. And if you got a question, ask me, but otherwise do the best you can. And everybody really kind of stepped up to the plate, and they do a phenomenal job. And frankly, I think when I'm gone for a month traveling and training, they're glad, because I don't get in their way. They can do their job without me micromanaging or telling them what to do. And they know what they're doing. They don't need me to tell them what to do. But being the control freak that I am, I always like to kind of put my 2 cents worth in, and they're typically, well, yeah, we already thought about that. So the demand and the ability, because of the people that work for me, is what made it possible for me to make that transition.
How did you know that this new passion of yours was the thing that you wanted to pursue? I mean, I know you mentioned a little bit, what got you angry, and you started to really want to change it, and then you went to that course. But I feel like a lot of people have a lot of different interests, and it's hard for them to really hone in on one and focus in on one. So how did you know?
Yeah. Very easy question for me to answer. October 10th, 2017. I woke up and grabbed my phone and started going through emails one morning. And I got an email from a woman named Liz Moreno. And it, paraphrasing it, basically said, you know, Mr. Julian, you probably don't remember me, but 2 or 3 years ago, my company had hired you to come in and teach the Alive program to all of the employees. There's like 80 employees or something. And I thought it was a great program, but frankly, I never thought I'd need it. And I haven't thought about it since. And October 1st, 2017, when I was in Las Vegas, watching Jason Aldean on stage, suddenly I started hearing what I and most people there thought were firecrackers. And we thought it was part of the show, or some, you know, smart aleck in the audience lighting firecrackers. And she said, so we didn't pay much attention until we started seeing people kind of get agitated. And then she said, I turned around and I saw a woman shot in the face and a man shot in the chest. And she said, I knew at that moment that it was not fireworks and it was a very serious situation. She said, I was with my boyfriend. We dove on the ground with a huge heap of other people, and we were laying there. And she said, at that very moment, your training just rushed from my subconscious to my conscious. And she said, at that second, I knew what to do. And she said, I turned to my boyfriend and I said, when the shooting stops, we've got to run. And he said, no, we're better off staying here. You know, she said, look, dude, when the shooting stops, I'm leaving with or without you. So he said, okay. So Stephen Paddock stopped to reload, and they stood up, grabbed hands, and started running. When he started shooting again, they took cover. When he stopped to reload, they started running again, and they made it back to the hotel they were staying at. She said, I texted my mom and said, Mom, you know where I'm at? You're going to see some stuff on the news. I just want to let you know I'm okay. And from that email, I had to read it 3 times to really grasp the immense weight of it and the fact of what I had just read. Subsequently, I reached out to her. She came to my office. We met. She told me the entire story. It was very emotional for her. She said she really hadn't been able to talk about it until that day, and it was kind of therapeutic that she could finally get it all out and talk about it. And she told me that, looked me in the eye and said, your training saved my life. And that was the switch. That was when I knew I had found my passion. I had found my purpose. There was something that I could do to make a difference rather than just running a company. I could literally be out teaching people how to survive a situation like this. And that is the day that my whole professional career changed.
Do you feel like all of those years spent in security investigations in that industry allowed you to come to this moment of finding your passion, finding your purpose?
The years, well, first of all, the years that I spent having to have a analytical mind and a security mindset and have situational awareness. And I have to give my father credit. My dad was an ex-cop and former military guy. And he was probably a little bit over the top. He was suspicious of everyone. So growing up with a father that was constantly looking around to see what was going on, who was there, did they fit, did they not fit, what were they saying, how were they acting, it was very analytical and almost suspect mindset. Just wondering, okay, who are you? What are you doing? And what is your intent? So that was very beneficial to that for me, I think. That answer your question?
Kinda. I'm more wondering.
I had 2 parts, but I forgot the second one.
I'm more wondering if you hadn't had that background, would you still have been able to find your true purpose in this? Like, would it have clicked? Would you have been able to do it?
No. For me, well, maybe I could have done it, but I don't think I would have been nearly as effective. I don't think the program would have been as good. Having a background in investigations and security was literally priming me my whole life for this. So, you know, no, I don't think that I would have gone this direction if I had been doing anything else.
the reason that I wanted to ask and really drill down into that is because I feel like a lot of people are searching for their purpose, searching for what they really want to do with their life. And a lot of those people that I see and a lot of the people that I talk to, they're trying to rush the process. Like they're trying to just go from point A to point Z of like, I just started today or I've been doing it for a little while, but I want to have this incredibly perfect passion, purpose, everything in alignment. And what I'm hearing is that you worked for so long and so hard in order to then get to the place where you could truly discover it through your hard work, through your dedication.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. I don't think I would have gone in that direction if I'd been in any other industry. And frankly, I'm not sure I would have had the confidence to say, hey, I can change this. I can start the paradigm shift. I can create something that will be effective, that will save people's lives. Now, that's not to say that the same type of revelation couldn't happen to somebody else in a similar situation with the same outcome. It probably wouldn't have been security related. But I think, and by the way, because of me studying and trying to become, the best entrepreneur I can be over the last 22 years, I've asked myself questions like that, and I've analyzed that. Where I am now, where might I be or have been if I'd started somewhere else and gone in a different direction? So I think the life that I've lived kind of helped me go in the direction that I did. But I taught a lot of classes over the years, and one of them I created starting a PI business. I was the president of the California Association of Licensed Investigators, and I was on the board for years and heavily involved. And one thing we were lacking is we had a lot of people, especially people coming out of law enforcement, transitioning into the private investigation industry. And I noticed that a lot of these guys just struggled to start their business because they came out of an environment where they were told every single day what to do and how to do it. And they had very specific guidelines, and they were working for somebody else. And it was, in law enforcement, it's not like you have to promote your business. You're always going to have business because there's always going to be bad guys. So I created the class with the hopes of teaching people how to leave that that public service and transition into a private sector. And one of the key things that I always told them was, if you're going to start a business, because there's lots of different kinds of specialties within law enforcement, and there's a lot of different specialties within private investigations. I said, there's two factors that are going to dramatically affect your success. One is what you're great at, and two is what you're passionate about. Now, a lot of people do what they're great at when they start a business and fail because they're not good business people. And a lot of people start a business and they're passionate about what they do. They don't know the business side of things, and so they do what they're great at, or they're great at something but they're not passionate, so they're unhappy, if that all makes sense. The key is to find out what you're passionate about. And if hopefully you're great at it, that's a really good formula for success. So you're good at it, you excel, and you're happy doing it. Because a lot of people do what they're great at and they're miserable. They're miserable because they're not doing what they enjoy doing. That's not something I wanted to do. So I was good at I was good at a good private investigator. I think I was a very good private investigator. I'd done it my whole life, taught by the best, my father. And I was good at security. But after 30 years of doing it, I wasn't passionate about it anymore. And when I found this, I found my passion. So I could take what I'm great at and apply it to what I'm passionate about. And that's why I'm so fortunate today.
One of the things that you mentioned when the gal reached out to you and shared her story, and you had that eureka moment where it changed your professional life forever. One of the things that really stuck out to me was in her story, and I know you're paraphrasing, but the idea of your training rose from her subconscious into her conscious mind
Yes.
when the time arose. How did you teach that, or how do you teach that in a way that it embeds the lesson and the principles into somebody's subconscious?
You know, that's the great thing about the human mind, which is the most complex and powerful computer ever created. Something goes into your subconscious and it typically never leaves. It may never come back to your conscious, but it's always there. And like I teach in my courses, there have been so many incidences recorded where somebody's at a restaurant and the person at the table next to them starts to choke, and they got food stuck in their windpipe and they can't breathe. And the person just stands up, walks over, wraps their arms around them, and does the Heimlich maneuver, and the food comes out, and they start to be able to breathe again. Another example is somebody faints, and they walk over, and they take the pulse. There's no pulse. They're not breathing. They lay them flat. They tilt their head back. They clear their airway, and they start CPR. They start mouth to mouth and compressions, and the person is revived. And they're asked afterwards, wow, that's amazing. Are you a doctor or a nurse? And the person goes, I took a first aid class like 15 years ago, and I haven't thought about it since. I wouldn't remember it if you asked me what to do today. But when suddenly that happened, it just came rushing into the front of my brain, and I knew what to do. And that is because people default to their level of training under times of stress. Now, that is not to say that you learn something once and go, oh, I got it, no problem, don't need to worry about it anymore. If you learn something, the more you learn and the more you train, the closer to your conscious it will be, and the quicker you will react, and the more effective and perfectly you will conduct that maneuver, whatever it is, that training. It will be regurgitated the way it's supposed to be because you've trained. But I didn't teach, Liz Moreno, I taught her one time. She was in a class for 3 hours, and she said, I haven't thought about it a day since. And then all of a sudden, all of that training just popped into my brain. And she said, at that point, I became completely calm because I knew exactly what to do.
Do you feel like for an entrepreneur or a business person or anybody really who's trying to spread their message, that they could take the principles of how you taught that class in order to help their audience, their tribe, really cement that and make it prevalent in their subconscious to when the time comes, they can recall it like that?
I think you're going to have to rephrase that question.
Yeah. So was there like a specific tactic that you used or a specific teaching style to really make sure that it's ingrained?
Yeah, that I get. And the answer is unequivocally, absolutely. Anytime I get testimonials or evaluations, which is every class I get, the common theme is always that I was very raw and in your face and passionate, and I'm not politically correct. I mean, I oftentimes cuss, and I sometimes yell, and I say things to people in a way that I know is probably going to make them uncomfortable, if not maybe even scare them a little bit. I mean, I don't really go that far, but it leaves a lasting impression. And the videos I show in my program several of them are real life active shooter events that were caught on film. And those are hard for a lot of people to watch, especially, and here's where I'm not politically correct, maybe sensitive or soft people that are, anti-violence and, rose-colored glasses because they think that violence is bad. Well, violence is bad. It's terrible. It's horrible. And it's unfortunate that we live with it. But it's here to stay. So if you go through life in denial or, not wanting to think about bad things happening or just spending all your time hating violence, you're not going to be prepared when it happens to you. So I'm very in your face about it. And I don't, my theory on this is really, If somebody leaves that day and they've decided they don't like me because of my personality, because of the way I talk, because of my mannerisms, because of the way I look, whatever, but they got it because of that and it saves their life, I can live with that. You know, let me put it this way. They'll be glad they did it. If they ever need it, they'll be glad they knew me, whether they liked me or not. And my whole purpose in life, which is to save these people's lives by teaching what I know, that will have come true, and I'm okay with it.
Can you give us a taste of the level of intensity that you bring to those trainings?
Sure. So one of the exercises I do, and this never fails to bring probably 4 out of 5 times the person I'm talking to, it might bring them to tears or to the verge of tears or become visibly upset. So here's the exercise I do. I ask the audience, is there anyone in here that believes that they cannot take another human life? And depending on the area of the country I'm in, is very different. Oftentimes in California, I will get hands raised. Down south, rarely. Most people, they're fine doing what they need to do to survive. But oftentimes I'll get it out here and somebody will raise their hand and I say, you don't believe you could take another person's life? And they say no. And I ask them, okay, do I have your permission to change your mind? And they will usually go, okay. So once I get their permission, I say, okay, now who is the person in your life that means the most to you, that is owns your heart and soul, who you never want to go a day without seeing, thinking about, and the idea of losing that person in your life just destroys you. And oftentimes it'll be their children, but it might be a husband or wife or a parent. I had one gal say it was her dog. Okay. So I said, okay. And then I'll ask another participant near them and I'll say, whoever you are, what's your name? Do I have your permission to use you in this exercise? And they say yes. And I say, okay, now we'll call this person Carol. Carol, what is the name of this person? Well, it's my daughter, Jessica. Okay, Carol. I want you to look at this person right here, and I want you to picture Jessica's face on that person. I want you to look at them and see Jessica, and I want you to feel those feelings that you feel when you look at Jessica, the warmth and the love and the nurturing and the wanting to protect that person from anything bad and evil and harmful in the world. Now, Carol, this is what's going to happen. And I take my gun, my fake gun, my finger gun, and I point it at Jessica, and I say, now, Carol, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I'm going to pull this trigger and I'm going to blow Jessica's brains all over the inside of this room. And when I'm done, I'm going to turn and I'm going to point my gun at you and I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to do the same thing to you. And after that, you're never going to see little Jessica ever again. Now I want you to take your gun and point it at me. And they take their little finger gun and they point it at me. And I say, now, Carol, I'll tell you what. I'm going to count to 3. And when I do that, when I get to 3, I'm going to kill Jessica. And all you have to do is pull your trigger before I get to 3. Ready? 1, boom. Normally they never get to 2. And I say, now, Carol, theoretically, based on this exercise, you just took my life. Now, I didn't do this to embarrass you. I didn't do it to prove that you're wrong and I'm right. I did this to prove to you, for you, that you are capable of doing whatever is necessary to save the people that you love from harm. Now, Carol, do you think you could take another human life? And they say, yes, I could. And I say, well, guess what? If you're ever in that situation, you're not going to have to pause. You're not going to have to wonder. And there's not going to be any kind of time lapse when you're going, oh my God, can I actually do this? Now you know. So you have a better chance of saving little Jessica and yourself if you're ever in that situation. And a lot of times women, some men too, they're visibly upset, some kind of whimpering and everything. And it's funny, even through that traumatic experience on the evaluations, they usually always thank me and say, I honestly didn't think I could do it. And that was a very, very uncomfortable situation for me. But I appreciate you showing me something about myself that I did not know before today. So that's one way that I teach. And another way is I'm just passionate. when I talk about this subject, when I talk about when the anger and the frustration that I feel from the idea of some pathetic coward who didn't have the coping skills to manage their own life, so it came to this, has decided to take the lives of people who woke up this morning and was going to go to work or going to go to school or going to go to church or going to go shopping and have a normal day, and they had the rest of their lives ahead of them. When that person is going to rob that person of their life, it makes me very angry. So I am very passionate about this. And when I talk to people, it comes through. I mean, I'm loud. I purposely, unless I absolutely have to, do not use a microphone, because I want to have to keep the volume level high for a couple of reasons. One, it has more impact. And two, hearing myself talk in a very loud and, I wouldn't say aggressive, but boisterous way, it helps keep my energy level up too. And a lot of times I do this after lunch and everybody's kind of gone into a food coma, including myself. So it helps me project better and more emphatically that way. But so, you know, I'm passionate about it, and I'm loud, and I'm in your face, and I want you to be uncomfortable. And I show videos that, unless there's something wrong with you, it should leave a very, you know, give you butterflies and leave kind of a lump in your stomach, because it's not normal, nor should it be normal for us to see things like that and just be okay with it.
When you're teaching people, and clearly you're exceptionally passionate about this and knowledgeable, like I don't think anybody would argue that you are the expert on this topic. But when you're teaching, do you feel like you are trying to connect with the individual that you're teaching? And if so, how do you truly make that connection?
I probably connect similarly to most professional speakers, at least in that you, without even thinking about it, you make connections with certain people in different ways when they're your audience. I love active listeners. You know, an active listener, you can always spot the active listeners because they're looking at you or they're looking at your mouth. Sometimes they're even mouthing the words, like they're trying to finish your sentence, but they're connected. And when you say something like, oh yeah, oh no, okay, I got that. I mean, they are plugged in. And then sometimes usually it's older guys who will sit there like this, like, oh, I don't need to hear this. I know this. I know everything, you know. Those are the guys I will usually go after to break down, because you know, one, I don't care if they're being rude and they're not listening to me. I can live with that. That doesn't matter. But if their ego is getting in the way of learning even one tiny little pearl of wisdom that they could use to survive a situation like this, I feel like it's my duty to kind of peel back the layers and maybe chip away at the armor to get them to open up and listen, so that maybe that one pearl, they do get it. And I have done that in the past, and several times I've broken a person down and got them actually engaged and involved to where they're active listening by the end of it. And some, they just get angrier, but that's okay. I mean, you know, you're either going to learn or you're not going to learn. And I'm going to do everything I can to get them to learn, even if they don't want to. And sometimes you can't. But I feel connected to my audience because I wrote my book. I'm talking. All I'm doing is just having a conversation with them like I am with you. And you know, I will zero in on certain people based on body language and their listening levels and so forth. But yeah, I feel like I'm very connected with these people because I have an interest in their life. I'm interested in even the crusty old guy that doesn't want to listen. I don't care. I want him to survive. I want him to survive because there's probably people that love him and want him to survive. And I want him to survive because I feel like it's my duty, since I have this knowledge, to give it to him, maybe even cram it down his throat if that's what's necessary. Because if I have this and I've been given this gift or opportunity or whatever to share, and again, it goes back to Liz Moreno, except for maybe when my kids were born, I have never felt a more profound feeling of purpose when what I teach was literally someone said, hey, what you taught me saved my life. And that's a good feeling. It's a little addictive, frankly. And I wouldn't mind. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that again. It would be great if I was put out of business because active killings, active shooters didn't happen anymore. But if they're going to occur and they're going to be part of our culture and our society and our everyday life, then I want to be the guy that's benefiting emotionally and mentally from giving that information to them to help them survive.
What's inspiring about hearing you talk about this is that it really seems, and there's almost no doubt in my mind, that you actually care and you actually give a shit about the people that you're talking to and that you're teaching and everybody. And what it really, so hit the mic, but what it really makes me think of is if everybody approached their business or their lives or the things that they're trying to do with that level of passion, I feel like we would be so insanely successful.
Oh yeah.
Because there would be no way to fail because you're just not going to take failure as an option.
No.
And where my question really lies is, let's say somebody is on the path and they feel like they have a passion that's driving them, but it's not nearly as powerful as the one that's driving you. What do you do?
Boy. You know, Ben, there are so many different factors that, so many different ingredients to baking that cake. But I would say most people are their own worst enemy when it comes to success and failure. And I was that guy years ago. Because I had a father that demanded excellence and perfection. I was scared to death to fail because the consequences were not pretty. There was times when I wouldn't do something because I was afraid to fail. And I think one of the first books I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And he said something that was so profound to me. Basically, first of all, he made the statistics about how many times people have failed, including Edison. But every failure, it's a numbers game. You're going to succeed at some point. Every failure you should celebrate because you're one step closer to succeeding. And that so changed my perspective and the thought of failure. And I just, you can almost just stop being afraid of it and almost welcome it because, oh, hey, I just failed. That means I'm one step closer to succeeding. Also, there's so many different emotional things that go on. And I've been down quite a journey. I've had my demons and I've faced them and I battled them. And I think I conquered my last one on Saturday, which was jumping out of an airplane because I swore I would never do it. I was scared to death of falling since I was a little kid. And some things in my life changed and somebody invited me. I said, absolutely, let's go do it. Now I want to keep doing it. You got to overcome your fears. You've got to change your mind. And it's that simple sometimes. I would urge anyone for any and every aspect of their life, but especially in business. If there's things holding you back, you're dragging an anchor, you're having a hard time taking that first step, start investing in some self development, audio, books, whatever, because all of the tips and tricks to solve the problems and overcome the fears and the objections that you constantly beat yourself up over, they're all in a book somewhere. And now if you got to drive an hour to work every day and an hour back, you got 2 hours to listen to something in your car that will probably, by the time you get home, you'll be a better person. So I kind of got off topic there, but self-development, I think, is so damned important. A lot of the reasons people fail are not exterior forces. They're internal forces. And if you can beat those, nothing can stop you.
Michael, I'm interested in learning, what is your greatest theory?
My greatest theory?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, God. Well, define theory for me so I know how to properly answer this.
Whatever comes to your mind first.
Well, here's one since we're talking about business. One of the greatest lessons I learned was from an old time private investigator from decades ago, and one of the founders of the California Association Licensed Investigators, Mr. Reed. I gave a talk in Newport Beach at a conference 15 years ago, probably. And he attended it, and we were walking back, and this guy was like a legend, and I was almost felt honored to be walking next to him. And he started talking to me about my presentation, and he gave me some very nice compliments. And then he said, and it was the starting a PI business. He said, you could be the greatest technician in the world, and a so-so businessman, or a so-so technician and a great businessman. And 9 times out of 10, the one that is a so-so technician but a great businessman is going to be successful in business. And I thought, wow, that's really powerful, because there's a lot of doctors and attorneys that are not very successful because they're brilliant doctors and attorneys, but they're not business people. And I thought, I'm great at what I do investigatively, but what I really need to do is become a good businessman. So if that qualifies as your definition of a concept, I would say that's probably a good one. And then, of course, I could pull several out of Think and Grow Rich and Good to Great and Built to Last by Jim Collins. Who Moved My Cheese there's so many great lessons in there. I wouldn't know where to start. So did that kind of answer your question? Is that a concept?
Yeah. I mean, you get to define your own theories. I was just asking the question.
Oh, theory. Yeah, theory. Gosh, I really am not sure as far as theories. I guess, I've always been I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. I will oftentimes act and then ask for permission afterwards. And that's not always the best thing. How about this? Have balance in your life. I think that can apply to everything. And I have been one who, as a Virgo and a dominant alpha male, I have been 100% of or nothing. And sometimes when you're 100% over here, you're leaving nothing for over here. So my advice to anybody is to have balance and find balance, because you'll have a lot happier and calmer life without such dramatic ups and downs, I think.
What balance would you have liked to have? All right, let me rephrase this. If you could go back and give yourself balance, what areas would you have preferred to be more balanced in?
It depends on the time of my life. Like I said, I'm I go balls to the wall on everything I decide to do. And sometimes to the point where, I'm that guy. I don't have an addictive personality, at least not long term, because if I find a food I like, I'll eat it every day until I'm sick of it. So then I kind of come back to a balanced, but I do it by attrition. I do it by actually burning out on something. But I have worked too much. I probably work too much right now, but I find it to be a necessity. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I've got 3 very big, important projects that I'm working on, and I can't wait to get them out. So, I woke up this morning and went right to my computer at my home office, and I started working. I went and met with my video production guy on some videos for my online training course that I'm doing. I came here, I worked. It's 5:35 now, and when we're done, I'll probably continue to work. I haven't gone to the gym probably more than 4 times in the last 7 weeks because I'm working so much. So I lack balance right now, to be honest with you. I need to, and I'm a very physical person. I've been going to the gym since I was 15 years old. So that is suffering right now. So a good example would be right now. I'd like to have more balance in that. I need to tell myself, okay, look, get off the keyboard, turn the computer off, go to the gym.
I want to thank you so much for coming on the interview today and sharing all that you have and spending this time with me today. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I have a few more questions for you, then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Whatever you need.
We've talked a lot about your entrepreneurial journey in your professional life. What's been going on in your personal life this whole time?
Well, happy to discuss that because I've got a lot of great things. This is bothering me. I'm sorry. I got to shut this. These are my kids when they were young. I was married for several years, had a very amicable divorce. I'm still very good friends with my ex-wife and her now husband. I've got two phenomenal children. My daughter will be 17 next month. She's an aspiring writer and just wrote an article that I'm publishing in different social media things on active shooter survival courses. And my son is 19. He's in the Marine Corps. He is in Washington, D.C. as a presidential guard. He graduated top of his boot camp, top of his infantry school, and was asked very early on if he wanted to be a presidential guard, which is a pretty big honor. And so I'm going to see him next weekend in Washington, D.C. So in my personal life, I've got two amazing kids who I could not possibly be more proud of. I had been in a relationship for about a year and a half. That is more or less semi-recently ended. And the timing is kind of good, frankly, because I don't have a lot of time for anyone but my work right now. So actually, maybe that's part of the reason it ended. I don't know. But so my personal life, I don't drink anymore. I used to drink, and I may drink again someday, but right now I am focused on my work, and I don't have time to go out, and I don't like the feeling of waking up with a hangover. So I'm just not drinking right now. I do enjoy going to the gym when I go. And I have amazing friends that I've had for decades. So when I see them, that's always a treat. As far as personal stuff, I like to go. I have a river house and a boat in Parker, Arizona on the Colorado River. So that's kind of my escape, my getaway. And I work.
Is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that I did not ask you about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Well, if you're talking about me personally, I have a couple of traits that I think have been beneficial to my success. One thing is I am very strong in decision making. I can make decisions very, very quickly, and oftentimes, more often than not, they're the right ones. And I think that has really benefited me. And I'm just not one, because I'm a person of action. Like I said, I would rather get something done now and find out it wasn't perfect than procrastinate and analyze and overanalyze to become paralyzed and not do something. And the time has gone by, the moment's gone, you missed the opportunity, or all of that time spent and wasted analyzing really didn't do you any good. So I think that's pretty good. And I'm a very ambitious and driven person, and that has been good and bad in my life. I think the people that are drawn to that sort of personality characteristic feel very strongly and appreciate that about me. And some people, frankly, I think are intimidated or rubbed the wrong way by that. But I'm just very straightforward, very direct, very honest. And I used to wear that like a badge of honor until somebody said to me, honesty without compassion is brutality. And I realized that being brutally honest is not something to be proud of, because you can end up hurting people's feelings. So I've kind of learned to dial it back a little bit, and I can still be direct, but sensitive to how my words and actions may affect somebody else, because strong people and strong personalities have an effect on people. It can really bother them or turn them off. And I'd rather people like me than even though I say, I don't care if you like me as long as I save your life. At the end of the day, I'd like you to like me too.
So I'm 24. and I have a couple businesses, but Project Egg is absolutely my greatest passion. What question should I be asking you, specifically me, asking specifically you with your wisdom, knowledge, experiences, your genius, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
That is such a great question, Ben. I think the question should be asked. And first of all, I commend you for asking it, because I think there's a lot of 24-year-olds that would not be open-minded and coachable enough to ask that question. When I was 24, I don't think I would have been, because I figured I had it. I thought I had it all figured out. But I think if I were sitting in your seat, I would say, what should I do that I'm not doing? Or well, basically what you just said, what should I ask that I'm not asking? Or what do I need to know that I don't know yet? And basically just a young guy asking an old guy, give me the secrets of life. It's kind of like that question. And the answer, I think, would be, like I said, have balance. Figure out a way. If you don't love yourself, figure out a way, no matter what it takes, money, time, whatever. If you don't love yourself, figure out a way to love yourself, because I know a lot of people who don't. And that's a shitty way to go through life. It's a sad, horrible thing. And it hurts my heart to see people that are amazing human beings, but they, for whatever external influence has been in their life, they doubt themselves, and they don't love themselves the way that they deserve to love themselves. Be kind to people. Appreciate the fact that everybody has got something that makes them awesome. And even if they can't show it anymore because of the weight on their back, they're people that probably have some amazing value, whether it's to you or not. They've got value. So everyone should be treated like they have value. And figure out what makes you happy and do it. Figure out what makes you happy and find a way to do that, because life is too freaking short and it can be snuffed out so quickly that spending your time chasing a dollar and not appreciating it, or spending it in a way that's going to bring more value to your life, or living in a win-lose mindset. I've adapted this win-win thing that I absolutely love. And if I do something, I just ask myself, are we both going to benefit from this, or is this just me? Because it used to be just all about me. I thought that the whole world was after me and I was going to take everything I could and keep it right here. And I found out that's not the case. And the funny thing is, the more you give back, the more you get. So I've kind of, because of where I'm at in life, I'm on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club, on the board of directors for the National Association for Missing and Exploited Children. I volunteer my time, and I get a tremendous sense of satisfaction and gratification from that, because I don't know, it just feels good to give. But you got to be in the right place in your life for that to click. And not everybody's there yet. I wasn't until I was older. I just turned 50 last year, and I think if I was going to write another book, it would be Life Starts at 50, because the quality of my life is dramatically better than it has ever been my entire adult life, and that feels pretty good.
Michael, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this time with me. It's truly been an honor. So thank you. And to everybody that's listening, I want to thank y'all listening and watching. I want to thank y'all so much. I love y'all very, very much. And, I'm so glad that y'all stuck around till the end. I'm so thankful for all the support, all the love. So y'all rock. Virtual high five to y'all. But yeah, thank you so much. Michael, you want to wrap us up?
You bet. What should I do, a shameless plug?
Sure, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, I mean, the only way that I'm going to help people survive these things is if they know, where to find me. So the website is activeshootersurvivaltraining.com. And when the online course comes out, I'm going to offer it very inexpensively because I want everybody to be able to afford it. I don't want it to be cost prohibitive to anyone. And a lot of times I have given my classes to groups that otherwise wouldn't be able to take it because of money. And I've given it very cheap and even free, just because I want to get the word out. And I mean, the whole reason I got into this was to teach people how to survive. And if it's going to be money that prevents that, then let's take money out of the equation and I'll just teach them anyway. So that's not to say everybody call me so I can give you a free presentation, because my time is valuable, but I want everyone to learn this. It is a tried and true, proven, effective program. And I think it's probably going to be the one that goes on forever, because I think it's that good. And it's just, people learn from it. Not everyone learns from every program. This is something that everyone can learn, and it's such a valuable lesson. So there's my shameless plug.
That was pretty good. So thank you so much, everybody. See you on the next episode.